I bought that house because I was tired of people. Not in a dramatic way, just professionally exhausted. When you spend 15 years working cybersecurity contract for corporations that barely understand their own systems, silence becomes valuable. Very valuable. That property sat on the edge of a luxury hillside subdivision overlooking the water. Private road, gated entry, no tourist traffic, no crowded streets, and most importantly, privacy. The infinity pool alone almost sold me immediately, not because it was flashy, because it faced open ocean with no neighboring houses directly behind it. At sunset, the entire horizon turned gold, and for the first time in years, my mind actually slowed down there. That's what I wanted. Peace. The neighborhood itself looked polished. Too polished, honestly. Every lawn trimmed perfectly. Every driveway spotless. One of those communities where people cared a little too much about appearances. Still, I figured it would be manageable. Then I met Karen, the HOA president, and immediately understood the dynamic. Some people get tiny amounts of authority and build entire personalities around it. Karen was one of those people. The first conversation we ever had lasted less than 2 minutes before she mentioned community standards. That told me everything. She walked around the neighborhood like she personally owned every property inside it, always carrying a clipboard, always watching people, always commenting on something. And for some reason, she became obsessed with my pool. Every time she passed the property, she slowed down near the gate, looking through the glass fencing, studying the layout. At first I ignored it. People admire nice things. Nothing unusual about that. But eventually, the comments started. You know, the community would really appreciate access to amenities like that. Amenities. That word stood out immediately, because the pool wasn't a community amenity. It wasn't HOA property. It wasn't shared access. It was entirely private, owned exclusively by me. That included the surrounding deck, access lane, security gate, and electronic entry system, which is where things became interesting later. Because unlike the neighborhood entrance, my property operated on an isolated private security network. Separate codes, separate authorization, separate ownership. Only I controlled it, and that detail ended up mattering a lot. About a month after moving in, vacation renters started appearing in the neighborhood. Every weekend, SUVs loaded with luggage, large groups, pool floats strapped to car roofs. Apparently, several homeowners had quietly started turning properties into short-term rentals. The HOA ignored it completely, which surprised me considering how aggressively Karen enforced everything else. But eventually I understood why. Because the rentals benefited certain board members financially. Funny how strict rules suddenly become flexible when money enters a situation. The neighborhood atmosphere changed quickly afterward. More noise, more strangers, more parties. But I mostly stayed out of it. I worked remotely anyway. Most days I spent near the pool with my laptop handling consulting work while trying to enjoy the ocean view. Then came the Saturday everything exploded. I woke up early that morning planning a quiet weekend. Coffee, emails, maybe swim later. Simple. Around 10:30, I noticed movement near the backyard access gate. At first I assumed maintenance workers got lost. Then more people appeared. Then more. Families, coolers, towels, children carrying inflatable pool toys. And before I could fully process what I was watching, people started entering my private pool area. Directly, casually, like they'd done it before. I stood there frozen for a second trying to understand what reality I was currently living in. Within minutes, there were nearly 15 strangers spread across my property. Swimming, opening drinks, playing music, taking photos. One guy actually asked me where the extra pool towels were kept. That's how comfortable these people felt. At first, I genuinely thought there had been some kind of misunderstanding. Maybe wrong address, wrong property. So I calmly walked over and asked, "Hey, how exactly did you all get in here?" And one woman smiled immediately before answering. "Oh, the HOA president gave us the gate code." The second she said that, everything clicked. Every weird comment Karen ever made about the pool suddenly made sense. She wasn't admiring it. She was using it. Somehow, the HOA had started advertising my private pool as a vacation rental feature. without permission, without consent, without even asking. I looked around the property again. People everywhere, on my furniture, using my outdoor kitchen, taking pictures beside my pool like they booked a resort package. And honestly, most people would have exploded right there, started screaming, threatening police, creating chaos. But anger makes people sloppy. And I don't get sloppy. Cybersecurity teaches something important. Control the system first, then control the situation. So instead of yelling, I quietly pulled out my phone, opened the private security app, and changed the master access protocol. Immediately, every electronic gate connected to the property switched to lockdown mode. Silent. Instant. The effect took about 10 seconds. Then confusion started spreading. People walking toward exits suddenly realized the gates no longer responded. Phones came out immediately. Conversations shifted. Panic spread slowly at first, then all at once. And technically, nobody was trapped. The property remained safe. Emergency override systems existed, but the normal automated exits? Disabled. Which meant one thing. Nobody was leaving until I decided the situation was resolved properly. That's when the phone calls started. Renters contacting property owners. Owners contacting the HOA. And eventually, Karen. Apparently her phone exploded within minutes. Because 15 angry vacation renters tend to create urgency fast. About 20 minutes later, Karen came storming down the access lane toward my property. And for the first time since I met her, she looked nervous. Very nervous. The renters immediately surrounded her, demanding answers, asking why the private luxury pool access suddenly stopped working. And that's when reality finally started hitting them too. Because people slowly realized something important. This wasn't neighborhood property. This was someone's actual home. Karen immediately demanded I reopen the gates. Not asked, demanded, like she still believed she controlled the situation. I stayed calm, opened my tablet, and pulled up the property records. Then I showed her the pool, the surrounding deck, the security system, the access road, every inch privately owned, exclusively by me. Her face changed instantly. That tiny crack in confidence people get when reality collides with ego. And suddenly, she understood how bad the situation actually was. By then, neighbors started gathering nearby, watching, recording, whispering. Because neighborhood drama spreads fast in luxury communities. The renters were furious now. Not at me, at Karen. Because many paid extra rental fees specifically for exclusive pool access. That phrase became important later. Very important. I looked directly at Karen and asked one simple question. Did you sell access to private property you do not own? And suddenly, she stopped talking completely. That silence told me everything. Because deep down, she already knew. Once I started researching online rental listings later that afternoon, the scale of the situation became unbelievable. Dozens of listings advertised private resort-style pool access. Photos of my property appeared in multiple vacation rental ads. Multiple. Without permission. Some listings even described the pool as a shared HOA luxury amenity, which was completely false. Now this situation wasn't annoying anymore. It was legal exposure. Massive legal exposure. Unauthorized commercial use of private property. False advertising. Liability violations. Insurance nightmares. And the HOA had created a digital paper trail proving everything. Cybersecurity specialists noticed patterns quickly. And once I started tracing listing activity, I realized Karen had likely coordinated this for months. Possibly longer. That night, the HOA scheduled an emergency meeting, which is usually corporate language for, "We are panicking." Lawyers became involved immediately, and lawyers hate digital evidence, especially timestamped digital evidence, messages, rental listings, gate instructions, screenshots, payment descriptions. It was all there, documented beautifully. The HOA's attorney contacted me privately the next morning. Honestly, he sounded exhausted. Apparently, this wasn't Karen's first power-related incident, just the biggest one. The emergency meeting itself felt completely different from previous HOA interactions. No arrogance, no superiority, No speeches about community standards. Just fear. Real fear. Because now they understood the scale of liability. If someone got injured in my pool, who was responsible? If insurance investigated and authorized commercial access, who paid? If homeowners sued over false advertising, who answered? And suddenly, the HOA realized something important. They had treated private ownership like a suggestion. That's a dangerous mindset, especially legally. Karen tried defending herself during the meeting, claimed she believed community use benefited neighborhood value. But nobody supported her anymore, not even the board. Because once money and liability enter situations, loyalty disappears fast. The HOA eventually settled everything quietly. Formal written apology, public clarification that the pool was never HOA property, financial compensation for unauthorized commercial usage, and strict new policies banning unapproved amenity advertising. Karen resigned shortly afterward. Not dramatically, just disappeared from meetings entirely. Honestly, that was probably best. The renters themselves eventually apologized too. Most genuinely believed they had legal access. And I couldn't really blame them. They were lied to by someone pretending to control property she never owned. That's the real problem with people addicted to authority. Eventually they stop recognizing boundaries. And once someone stops respecting boundaries, consequences become inevitable. A few weeks later, the neighborhood became quiet again, peaceful, the way it was supposed to be from the beginning. Sometimes I still sit beside that pool at sunset thinking about how absurd the entire situation was. One woman became so obsessed with control. She accidentally turned someone else's private property into an illegal vacation business. And all because she assumed nobody would challenge her. That assumption destroyed everything. Because real ownership matters. Real boundaries matter. And eventually, reality always reclaims both. If you enjoyed the cinematic HOA story, hit like, subscribe for more HOA justice stories, and tell me, where are you watching from?